Hi there! Welcome to Becoming the Self-Led Woman podcast. My name is Monica, and this is a weekly podcast for modern women in which we will explore different topics such as self-leadership, personal growth, financial empowerment, feminine wisdom, all sorts of things that help us understand how can we navigate nowadays as a modern woman. You can think of it as a coffee chat that you can have with an older sister. So here I am as your older sister that I am sharing honest, supportive, practical insights that can help you create the life that feels more aligned, more empowered, and really more heart-led and authentic. This week, let's talk about something that probably many women can relate to, which is having this little voice inside your head that is often talking, and talking. You should do this, maybe you shouldn't have done that, maybe this could have gone better, etc., etc. So, while this voice can be nice for some people, they might have a nicer inner voice. For many women, including myself in the past, this voice can sometimes, let's just say that it can be a little bit too critical or talks too much or worries too much. And then we are often finding ourselves ruminating over things over and over again, thinking about, how I could have done things differently. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. And for example, waking up 3 a.m. in the morning and then having this thought that really haunts us for the rest of our nights. So while this voice can really be not so helpful for our lives and maybe also bringing us down even in certain times when we really need a certain level of confidence to do certain things in our lives. If we know how to work with it, it can actually become our best friend, become our therapist, mentor, and coach even. So, before I get into how we can change this quality in our inner voice, let's talk about how did we develop this inner voice that could talk all the time, that could, point finger at things and even be critical and bringing us down. So, we often adopt the way we talk to ourselves through the way people around us since childhood, how they talk to us. For example, we might have a mother or a father that is often like, oh, be careful, don't do this, or you have to behave like a good girl, you're misbehaving, that's not good. So when we are used to hear this kind of tone of voice from other people all the time, we eventually absorb this pattern of how we are talked to. And then we develop this inner voice that talks in a very similar way. So, this is also why, if you are a parent, it would be best if you can do your best really to notice this, how you are talking to your child, and really shift into a more encouraging voice. And for example, if your child makes a mistake, instead of saying, oh, you shouldn't have done this, etc., etc., it makes a huge difference when you can say, oh, you can do it. You just need to figure it out how, and we can do that together. So let's see how we can fix this, for example. So we develop this inner voice that might become critical. It actually serves to keep us safe because we learned that, okay, that's how our parents tries to keep us safe. So now we are learning to do this to ourselves to keep ourselves safe. However, it just doesn't realize that it is not the best way to help yourself to keep yourself safe, and that as you grow up and become an adult, now this kind of voice is actually limiting the kind of life that you can achieve. Because maybe in the past, if I were a little kid and I tell myself, oh, maybe I shouldn't try this, like jump around the pond, let's say, But maybe now as an adult, it doesn't serve me to think, oh, maybe I shouldn't risk doing a business, doing a new project, etc. So at the end of the day, this voice is not really your enemy, but rather it just learned a pattern that no longer works the best for your life. Now, before you can really change a pattern, the first step is to notice it. And this is actually not easy because it can be so ingrained in us that we actually normalized it already. So our brain takes it as a normal pattern, really. So we don't really notice how critical it can sometimes be. For example, I never really noticed the quality of my inner voice until someone actually pointed it out. So, some time ago, I was talking with someone that was really close to me. And I don't remember the conversation at all, like all the details, but I remember that at some point I was saying, oh, I'm really not good at this, not really good at sports, etc. And this person, they paused and then they asked me, why would you say this about yourself? Why would you tell yourself this? Because if you don't really tell a child or your best friend or a loved one this, like I wouldn't, for example, tell my child, like, oh, you're really not good at sports, then why would I actually tell myself this? And when this person pointed it out, a light bulb actually light inside of my mind. And that's when I began to be aware, like, oh, I actually really don't talk to myself really as nice as I talk to my loved ones. So why is it? So this was the beginning really on my journey to change my inner voice. So then I began to ask, not from a place of criticism, but actually from a place of curiosity. Like, why do I actually talk to myself in this way? And whenever my inner voice brings in something like, oh, maybe I'm not really good at XYZ, like let's say public speaking, but I've been working on it, then I began to really challenge this belief from a place of curiosity, not from a place of, oh, I shouldn't think like this, etc., but actually ask, okay, is it really true that I am not really good at it? Or is it just actually that I'm worried that I'm not good at it? So I began to challenge the things that my mind starts to bring. And then I also asked my mind, you know, if you want to bring in a concern or bring in an insecurity and tell me something, please tell it in a kinder manner. So let's be kind towards each other. Because, at the end of the day, my mind is just trying to protect me with the way that it knows best. It's not that it wants to torture me or make me feel bad on purpose, but it is just bringing out concerns, but in the way that it always learned from other people. So it was then that I began to develop this beautiful friendship with my inner voice. And then I also start to ask, okay, I understand this concern, I understand this worry, this insecurity. Can you also present me counter beliefs that actually reminds me that it's not actually so bad as I am perceiving it or feeling about it? Because, when you are with your best friend or loved one and they are saying, oh, I'm not really good at public speaking or etc., you would actually help them realize that, hey, wait a minute, are you sure it is true? Because you have been succeeding in talking in XYZ sessions or events, and you have this confident woman inside you. So, are you sure that you are actually not really good at it? Because you actually seem very good at it. That this might just be a moment of doubt. And what is it that you might actually need right now to feel more secure, to feel more at ease? Maybe we can help each other to figure this out. So, asking questions from a place of curiosity and then exploring alternatives, or how am I really feeling about it? Like asking myself, how do I really feel about it right now? Questions and self inquiry is very powerful because when we learn how to make the right questions, it really helps us unlock different perspectives and better understanding of a situation instead of going into that rumination and catastrophizing everything. And this is how I also slowly but surely turned my inner voice into my best friend, into even a therapist, a mentor, a coach. And really, often, for example, if I make a mistake or fail it at something or something that didn't go as well as I hoped for, I could understand why I would feel insecure, why I would just want to hide into a corner, hide under my bed sheets, and then even cry at times. So I would allow myself to have this moment, just like I would allow my best friend to have her moment, for example. And I would really stay with her and understand how she feels. And then when my best friend would feel calmer, then I would start to ask her, hey, is it really true that you are not really good at it? Because many times you did so well in XYZ and etc. And you also know deep down that you have this capacity, right? So let's just figure out what we can do the next time so that it can be better and better. And even the best and most successful women, their paths are paved with a lot of mistakes and learning and trying over and over again. And also having support when she needed so that she could be where she is nowadays. So let's not worry now about the past mistake, but actually focus on what we can achieve from now on. And when you feel better, maybe right now you can grab a latte, watch a movie, go enjoy a hot bath with a bath bomb. And then later, let's have fun strategizing what we can do, what we can create, and realign ourselves with our path. So you see, this inner voice that I have right now, that is really my best friend, it takes a lot of time actually to develop. Because just like many women, I grew up in learning how, oh, I shouldn't be like this, or I should be like a good girl, or maybe I'm not good enough to do this, or I should do, etc. And initially, it can be so unhelpful, really. It limits us in the things that we can really do and achieve in our lives. But the moment we take notice of how this inner voice is talking to us, and the moment we start to challenge the limiting beliefs that it has, and then we ask it to really work with us to find better ways, better mechanism to support us like a best friend and a mentor and a coach, it can become really, really empowering for women. And you can have so much fun sometimes to recalibrate your inner voice. For example, one of the things that I do even is that I even borrow real people or characters as mentors or coaches or therapists. For example, if I go through a situation where I need to make a decision or where something happens and I don't know how to deal with it, I would even ask, like, what would my teacher, for example, what would she do in this kind of situation? For example, let's say that in my business, I feel awkward with sales. Then instead of, going into this mental loop of, oh, maybe I'm not good at sales, but I need to do sales to have my business prospering. Then maybe I can ask, for example, what would a woman who is in her integrity and abundance instead of scarcity, what would she decide to do? How would she do these sales to reach people, really? And then, for example, my mind would start to play this game and say that, okay, maybe instead of chasing after people, trying to convince them why they should, buy my services, maybe she would show up and present herself in different channels or even events, and then allow people to discover her. So when people who really feel this alignment with the service that she provides, then they can come to her, and there is already this alignment between she and her clients without the need to chase or convince someone who might not even be so interested in her services. So, changing the quality of our inner voice is definitely possible. And when we do so, we break free from so many limiting ceilings that we put onto ourselves without we realizing it. And I hope that this podcast episode can also help you to start this journey, that you can become more free with your life and more empowered to live the life of your dreams.